Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into Supermicro Computer Inc.
SMCI is that?
SMCI, exactly.
Yeah.
They're the ones building those really powerful servers, the ones that handle all the AI and big data stuff.
Yeah. All the heavy lifting.
All the heavy lifting, yeah.
Yeah.
So today, our goal is to figure out, is this company a good investment? Should you be putting your money into it? We've been digging through tons of stuff, articles, financial reports, market analysis, and even some Reddit threads.
You got to get a feel for the street, right?
Exactly. Got to get a feel for what people are thinking, what the sentiment is. So stick with us. By the end, you'll have a better idea of whether SMCI is a hidden gem or a potential train wreck. It's more than just computers, right? They're kind of building the foundation for this whole digital age we're living in.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's break it down. What does SMCI actually do for someone who, might not be super familiar with data centers and all that? Yeah, so they design, manufacture, and sell a whole range of solutions for high-performance computing. We're talking servers, storage, networking equipment, basically, all the ingredients you need to build a really powerful data center.
Like the brains and the nervous system.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't just stop at assembling the parts. SMCI is known for being ahead of the curve, particularly when it comes to cutting-edge technologies like AI and 5G.
So they're not just keeping up, they're trying to lead the pack.
Yeah, they're trendsetters, and in a market that's constantly changing, that's huge.
Definitely. So it's a pretty competitive market. How do they actually get these products into the hands of their customers?
Well, they've got a pretty diversified approach. They do direct sales, work with a global network of distributors and resellers, and they even have their own e-store.
So they're covering all their bases.
Yeah, they're not putting all their eggs in one basket. That's a good sign from a business perspective. And there's also the whole made in the USA angle.
Right, which is becoming more and more important these days.
Absolutely. Supply chain security is a major concern nowadays, and that definitely gives them an edge.
Interesting. So they're involved in a lot of different areas, and they're building things here in the U.S. Seems like they're doing a lot of things right. But what about the people in charge? From what I've read, SMCI's leadership has had its share of ups and downs.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, you've got Charles Liang, the founder and CEO. He's really been the driving force behind the company's incredible
It's
grade.
the visionary, the Steve Jobs.
Exactly, the Steve Jobs. Oh, we're talking revenue and earnings that have really surprised a lot of analysts. But there have also been some issues, especially regarding accounting practices and corporate governance.
Yeah, that whole situation in 2024 was pretty concerning. Didn't their auditor resign because of, well, accusations of accounting manipulation? That's not exactly something you want to see as an investor.
No, not at all. It definitely raised some red flags. I mean, they did form a special committee to investigate. They brought in a new auditor. But the whole thing left a lot of investors feeling like, well, like the company wasn't being as transparent as they could have been.
Yeah, transparency is key, especially after something like that.
Exactly. So regaining that trust has been a big hurdle for them.
Okay, so rebuilding trust is important. But at the end of the day, trust doesn't pay the bills. What about their financials? How's SMCI's financial health looking right now?
Well, their market cap is currently sitting at $19.48 billion.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's a lot of billions. And their revenue growth year over year is a whopping 109.77%.
Wow, they're definitely growing.
Yeah, they're clearly doing something right when it comes to grabbing market share. But there are some areas where they could, improve.
Okay, I like where this is going. Give it to me straight.
Well, their gross margin is 14.13% and their operating margin is 8.47%. Basically, they're not making as much profit on each sale as they could be.
So high growth, but maybe not the most efficient operations. What about debt? Are they taking on a lot of risk to fuel this growth?
Their debt-to-equity ratio is 0.40, so that suggests they're not over-leveraged. But there's another piece to this puzzle, their free cash flow.
Right, the all-important cash flow.
It's been a bit up and down because of, investments they're making in new facilities and changes in working capital. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
So it sounds like they're balancing a lot. Rapid growth, trying to keep costs under control, investing in the future. That's a lot for any company to handle.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's what makes SMCI such a fascinating case study. They've got enormous potential, but they've also got some real challenges to overcome.
It's a high-wire act.
It really is.
A high-wire act with a lot of potential reward, but also, a pretty steep drop if things go wrong.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so interesting, right?
Absolutely. So stay tuned, because next up we're going to delve into the market sentiment around SMCI and see what the experts in the internet think about their future.
Yeah, let's see what the crystal ball has to say.
Let's see if it's clear or cloudy, all right?
Right. It's a bit like they're trying to, build the plane while they're flying it.
Yeah.
So much potential, but they got to be careful they don't stall out.
Speaking of control,
Mm.
how much control do they actually have? I mean, market sentiment can be so unpredictable.
Hmm.
What's the overall feeling about SMCI?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. You've got some investors who are completely on board. They think SMCI is going to be the next Apple or something.
The next big
The
thing.
next big thing, yeah. They see the growth, the potential, and they're not worried about any of the bumps along the way.
Makes sense, especially with, how much buzz there is around AI right now.
Right, exactly. But not everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid.
Okay, so there's some skepticism out there.
Yeah, there's a pretty big group of investors who are a lot more cautious. They see those red flags we talked about, like the accounting issues, the pressure on their margins, the fact that they rely so much on just a few big clients.
Yeah, those are some pretty big concerns.
Yeah, and they're not so sure SMCI can really get past all that.
So classic risk versus reward.
Exactly.
What are the analysts saying? Any consensus?
Funny you should ask that because the analysts are kind of all over the place on this one.
Really?
Yeah, price targets range from a low of like $23 to a high of $135.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah, it is, with an average target of, I think it's around $62, but that's a massive spread.
Wow. Talk about a lack of consensus. It's like
Mm,
nobody knows what to make of SMCI.
yeah.
And with all the news lately, it's probably even harder to predict what's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Any news about those accounting issues, regulatory compliance, their partnerships, especially that big one with NVIDIA, that can send the stock price on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Up and down, you just don't know.
So the market is basically saying, we're excited about the potential, but we're also kind of terrified.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of excitement, but a healthy dose of fear as well.
All right, well, let's talk about who's actually putting their money where their mouth is. Who owns SMCI?
Well, the big players, the ones with the most skin in the game, those are the institutional investors, like Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street.
The big guys.
The big guys, yeah. They hold over 80% of the company's shares.
Wow, so they're definitely betting on SMCI.
Yeah, they're not just dipping their toes in the water. They're jumping in head first.
Okay, but what about the people on the inside? What's the insider ownership look like?
Well, Charles Liang, the founder, he still owns a big chunk of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And some insiders have been selling shares recently, but it's not like a mass exodus or anything like that.
Okay, so no one's running for the exits.
No, not really. Insider ownership is still pretty high.
Okay, but there's a difference between owning a few shares and having real control over the company. How concentrated is ownership among these groups?
That's where things get interesting. The top 25 shareholders control over 50% of the company.
That's a lot of power in the hands of a few.
It is. It's definitely something to think about, especially with those corporate governance concerns we talked about earlier.
Yeah, definitely raises some eyebrows.
It does.
If you're going to invest in SMCI, you got to ask yourself, do you trust this group to make the right calls? Not just for themselves, but for everyone who owns a piece of the company.
It's a good question, and one every potential investor should ask themselves.
So we've got this picture of a company with massive potential, but also some serious question marks. Let's do a classic SWOT analysis to get a clearer view of their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are their biggest strengths?
Well, they've got a lot going for them. They're a big player in this high-performance computing market, which is booming right now, especially when it comes to AI and data centers. And they've got this expertise in liquid cooling technology, which is like essential for keeping those powerful servers from overheating.
Yeah, otherwise they just...
Exactly, they'd be toast. They're also really investing in expanding their manufacturing capacity, which is a smart move with demand growing like it is.
So they're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, definitely.
But nobody's perfect.
Right.
What are their weaknesses? Where do they struggle?
Well, even with all that impressive revenue growth, they've actually been losing market share with some of their big customers.
Oh, is that good?
And those accounting and auditing issues from 2024, those are still kind of hanging over their heads, Plus, they really need to figure out how to improve their profit margins.
Yeah, squeeze a little more out of each sale.
Exactly. Right now, they're not making as much profit as they could be.
So some room for improvement on the operational side. But every challenge is also an opportunity, right?
Right.
What opportunities are out there for SMCI to really shine?
Well, the demand for AI infrastructure is just exploding, and they're in a great position to capitalize on that. Their new Blackwell-based systems could be a real game changer, It could help them win back that lost market share and move into new areas.
Expand their horizons.
Exactly. And there's a whole world of potential customers out there as they start targeting new markets globally.
Sounds promising,
Ugh.
but lots of potential pitfalls too. What threats should investors be aware of?
Well, the competition in this space is fierce. You've got these big established companies and all these hungry startups all fighting for the same slice of the pie.
A jungle out there.
It is. And there's always the risk of getting squeezed out. Then you've got the whole regulatory landscape to think about. If they can't resolve those compliance issues, they could get delisted from NASDAQ, which would be a major blow.
Ouch, that would hurt.
Yeah, it would. Plus, they're not immune to all the problems facing the tech industry in general, like supply chain disruptions, cybersecurity threats, and all those geopolitical tensions.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah, all the fun stuff. It all affects their bottom line.
So it's a complex landscape with a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot to keep track of for sure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. What's the big takeaway for our listeners who are thinking about investing in SMCI?
SMCI is a company with a really compelling story, a lot of ambition, and a real shot at becoming a leader in this whole high-growth world of AI hardware. But it's not a sure thing. There are some serious hurdles they need to overcome, and investors need to really carefully consider those risks.
It's a gamble.
It is. It's high risk, high reward.
It's kind of like they're at a fork in the road right now.
Yeah, which way will they go?
Exactly. Will they become the king of the mountain or stumble along the way?
That's a great analogy. The tech landscape, it really is like a mountain range. You got these established peaks, the big names everyone knows. And then you got all these up-and-coming companies, trying to climb, to carve their own path, maybe even become the next Everest.
And some of them might just end up as foothills.
Yeah, exactly. That's the risk, right? That's the thing about investing. It's about trying to pick out the companies that actually have what it takes to reach the summit. And SMCI, well, they're definitely on their way up.
They're making the climb. So let's recap for our listeners. What are the must-knows about SMCI?
All right, so first off, they have a wide range of products, a real commitment to innovation, and they've already carved out a strong position in the market. But their management team, while they've led the company to this incredible growth, they really need to rebuild trust after those accounting issues.
Right. Those are going to be some lingering doubts for sure.
Definitely. And then on the financial side,
Yeah, what's their story there?
they're generally strong, but they need to keep a close eye on their working capital and their profit margins. It's like building a house, right? You need a solid foundation, but you also got to make sure you can afford the mortgage payments.
Love the analogy. So solid foundation, but maybe keep an eye on those monthly bills.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we got to remember that the market sentiment is, well, it's all over the place.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Some people are totally head over heels for SMCI, and others are, well, they're running for the hills.
And on top of that, ownership is really concentrated, which, raises those questions about corporate governance.
Yeah, how much influence do those few big players actually have? It's something to consider.
Definitely something to consider.
Huh.
And our SWOT analysis, that really showed us that while SMCI has the potential to be a real powerhouse, there are some real threats out there.
Oh, absolutely. It's not an easy path forward.
So the big question, the one we've been circling all episode, if SMCI manages to navigate all these obstacles, if they get everything right, could they become the dominant force in the AI hardware market?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's no crystal ball.
No easy answers.
Nope.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right? That's what gets investors excited, that potential, that unknown.
It's like a detective novel,
Yeah.
know? We're constantly searching for clues.
Exactly. And we've given you plenty of clues today. Now it's your turn to go out there and do your own research, dig a little deeper, and decide for yourself if SMCI is a company you want to bet on.
Absolutely. And to help you with that, you can find all the sources we use for this deep dive, all the articles, reports, even those Reddit threads we talked about in the episode description.
Yeah, go check those out. Get the full picture.
And after you do, head over to the comment section and let us know what you think. Do you think SMCI is going to take over the AI hardware world? Or are they going to stumble? We want to hear your predictions.
And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive and you want more insights like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel. We're always breaking down the latest trends, the most interesting companies, all to help you make sense of the market.
We're your guides to the investing world.
Exactly. And as always, a friendly reminder that this is not financial advice.
Nope, not at all.
All investment decisions should be based on your own research and your own risk tolerance. Invest wisely, folks.
And until next time, happy investing.